Pamajanatimantasya janam smakya Shakshurmritam yena tasmai shigurve namaha. Hare Krishna, we will discuss the last part of the 6th chapter today. Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates. What did we learn or hear during the previous class? Prahlad Maharaj said, even though human life is temporary, we can use it to attain spiritual perfection. And then in different verses he explained how most of our life is wasted. So Prahlad Maharaj is instructing his schoolmates in this chapter. In the previous chapter, we may remember that Prahlad had 2 meetings with his father. In the first meeting, he said, Shravana Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Patasevnam Archam Pandam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani Vednam. So, Patasevnam Archam Pandam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. 9 angas of devotional service. After hearing that, Hiranyakasipu thought, yes, his conscience is polluted by some Vaishnavas who come secretly. And he asked his the teacher Sona Namarka to be more careful. And then he had a second meeting after that with his father. And there his father asked what was the best you learned in school, and then Prahlad answered with 3 verses, which we discussed in detail. But after hearing Prahlad's reply, Prahlad told him that Sadhamanyesya Varidam Sadasmet Vishyadyama Sarhatit Vatmapadam Hyamanda Kupan Panam Kranam Darim Ashrayita Panam Katamka Darim Ashrayita Ashri, yeah. He said to his father that yes, best of the demons, that best of the demons, you should get out of this materialistic life of sense gratification and go to the forest, to Vrindavan, where Krishna consciousness is prevalent. And then he said, Maturna Krishna Patos Vatuvamito Patyet Hyapanam Anantakavirvis Tamtamishampanas Vanasarvat Sarnana. He said, yes, you will never become Krishna conscious. Your inclination for Krishna will never be aroused because you are in the deep well of sense gratification. Your senses are uncontrolled and you are always just doing the same stereotype activities, chewing the chewed. And that is, why is that? Nativitus Vadratim Visnum Darasye Bayartamanina Yadayatan Derpanemas the Bisam Tamurudam Nivada. Because you don't know the goal of life. The goal of life is Vishnu. That you are just absorbed in external energy. One blind leader leading others, and they fall into a ditch. unless you smear your body with the dust that has touched the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, you will not come out of that situation. And then after hearing that, Hiranyakashipu became very angry and decided to kill Prahlad. He decided to kill Prahlad in so many ways, but it didn't happen. He could not touch him. At the end, Sanayana said, "Oh, let him go back to the Gurukul, and we will re-educate him. He's still young." But in this chapter, we heard that Prahlad Maharaj, when his teachers were out of school, they were out of school to attend their household duties, that Prahlad Maharaj started to preach to his schoolmates and counteract all their materialistic preaching. So Prahlad Maharaj, his father tried to kill him, attacking with spears, putting him in a well with serpents, tried to poison him, tried to throw him from a rock. There is a memory of Govinda Dasi. In the first book of the 7th canto, there is a picture of Prahlad. This is in the original book. A picture of Prahlad with all the demons and their spears, trying to attack Prahlad. That picture is still there. I don't know. This is the book here that I have. See Prahlad. So Prabhupada asked Govinda Dasi to draw this picture. So Govinda Dasi said, I had to come up with some demons, but I did not know how demons look like. Some way or other, I drew some demons. I asked Srila Prabhupada, is that okay? Srila Prabhupada said, very good. There are very good. There are demons who look like this. Even on this planet, there are such demons. Govinda Dasi replied, oh, really? I didn't know that. Srila Prabhupada replied, there are a lot of things you don't know. So we have seen in this 6th chapter, which we are discussing now, Prahlad Maharaj is preaching. Although he had been tortured in so many ways, he never stopped preaching. Prahlad Maharaj said in this first verse of the chapter, Kamarachat Pakho Dharmam Bharvatamyam. Yeah, one should take up Bhagavad Dharma, devotional service, from a young age, from childhood. Because he said Krishna is Priya Atmana Surit, is your well-wisher. He is everything for you. Then Prahlad Maharaj said, childhood, adolescence, old age, they are wasted. And in household life, you lose time with money and absorption in household problems, career, etc. And sleeping at night is also all the time you sleep, it's wasted. So in this 19 text here, the main idea of preaching of Prahlad Maharaj in chapter 6 and 7 is expressed. That's the first verse we will read. He's going to show how material life is very difficult, and to please Krishna is very easy. This theme will be there. Material life is very difficult, so many problems. But this preaching like Prahlad Maharaj, does that happen also today? Interesting question. This is from Indradyumna Maharaj's diary, a traveling preacher. So he was somewhere in Poland, and he was looking for an adult to preach to in one of the cities in Poland. And suddenly he heard a voice. Hare Krishna, Gurudev. He saw a little hand with flowers just in front of his face. This is for you. I looked down and saw a little girl wearing a sari with a big smile on her face. Well, thank you, he said. What is your name? My name is Camilla and I'm 9 years old. Don't you remember me? And Maharaj replied, not exactly. I meet many children during my travels. Thank you for the flowers. So Indradyumna Maharaj was thinking, I finished it quickly and find a serious adult to preach to. She said, the young girl said, we met 2 years ago at one of your festivals. I saw you chanting in the rain that day. When my neighbors told us that they were going, I wanted to go too. He said, you saw us chanting in the rain? Then he remembered his hesitance to join the kirtan because of the bad weather that morning. The young girl said, yes, and that night at the festival, when you saw that I was interested, you talked to me and told me stories about Krishna. Suddenly, I remembered the little girl. I never forgot you. I prayed to you. So the little girl said, I never forgot you. I pray to you every morning when I wake up and every night before I go to sleep. My eyes suddenly started to look. Yeah, Maharaj said, my eyes suddenly started to look in the crowd for another guest, and I looked down at her and said, you do? Oh yes, she said. I'm so thankful to you. You are? Yes, as I promised you, I'm chanting 3 rounds on the japa beads you gave me every day. Gurudev, this time I want to ask you for a spiritual name. I replied, are your parents devotees? She said, no, they are divorced and I live with my mother. I replied, oh, I see. What will your mother think if I give you a spiritual name? She replied, oh, she is just over there. I will get her. She ran off, and in minutes she came back with her mother. I said, pleased to meet you, and I shook the mother's hand. Pleased to meet you, the mother said. You have done so much for my daughter. She loves you very much. The walls of our room are covered with your photos. I must admit, when she came home from the festival a few years ago, I was quite upset that she had gone without my permission. But my irritation soon changed in astonishment. She used to be such a naughty child, so difficult to handle. But after that meeting with you, she changed so much. How can I complain when she is praying every day to you and chants on the beach you gave her? She was even reading your movements books. As an 8-year-old, she couldn't understand much, but what she understood, she shared with her friends at the school. So she was preaching at the school. One day in the religious class, when the priest was speaking favorably about other religions, my daughter stood up and challenged him. She said, "All religions are good," she said, "and people should have the right to choose the religion they want to follow." When she told him that she was a follower of Hare Krishna, he went speechless. She was asked to leave the class for good. And recently, I was being called before the school administration, and they told me if she continues preaching about Krishna to her schoolmates, she will have to leave. She will have to leave the school permanently. So this is going on in Poland. She at home makes sweet balls, offer it to your picture, and then gives it to the dogs. But believe me, I am not upset. I realize I have a special daughter. She taught me so much. Because of her, I'm reading now Bhagavad Gita. She has been so anxious to meet you again. She can't sleep at night. So the young girl spoke. I really want to have a spiritual name, but someone told me that I have to chant 16 rounds and be your follower. Nadyumna Maharaj replied, I can't imagine to have a better follower as you. We will give you the name Shyam Lila Dasi. She bowed down and with tears in her eyes, she said, I'm so grateful. So this is an example of what's going on. That there is another example. This is from the BTG, and that's going back more than 30 years, in 1990. It's very short. This is in America. This is one girl, and she's now married, and she has children. So her name was Anjali. Anjali's teachers and friends knew she was a Hare Krishna devotee. In the school, whenever possible, she would talk about Srila Prabhupada and write papers on Krishna conscious teachings. In the 9th grade, Anjali, in saffron sannyasi clothes, gave a class presentation on Srila Prabhupada's life. After Anjali's talk, her English teacher came to her to see her altar at home. The next day, the teacher told all the other teachers to go to Anjali's house. So her teachers never misunderstood Krishna consciousness. They understood it to be a genuine spiritual practice. Some would come to their home to see the altar and to enjoy spiritual food. She was in the 9th grade. She must have been 13 or 14 years. She told her friends about Krishna because, as in the same way Prahlad Maharaj told his friends, they are inquisitive of what happens after death. I know all the answers and I want to help them understand why certain things happen before they become frustrated with their life and fall in the hole of illicit sex. I don't want that. I can explain Krishna consciousness to them in a down-to-earth way. It is a lot easier and effective learning. Yeah, it is a lot easier and effective learning. The kids are fascinated by Krishna consciousness philosophy. So these are these are some examples of what's happening. That were two examples. So Prahlad Maharaj is preaching to his friends that, and he says Lord Narayan is very easy to please. That there's a commentary on from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this verse, and he makes short comments. He says, "You don't need to go far; it's in your heart, because you can please him by hearing and chanting. Is easily pleased." That so we read the verse translation. My dear sons of demons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is the original Supersoul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing him or worshipping him under any conditions, whether one be a child or old man. The relationship between the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. That so first I will read the first part of the purport. One may ask, one is certainly very attached to family life, but if one gives up family life to be attached to the service of the Lord, one must undergo the same endeavor and trouble. Therefore, what is the benefit of taking the trouble to engage in the service of the Lord? Srila Prabhupada says this is not a valid objection. Yeah, there is more. The objection is yes, there is more trouble in endeavoring for spiritual life than for material life. But what's the result of spiritual life? It's eternal. And it's fun, because Prahlad Maharaj will say it's natural. Kevala Ananda Kanda is the path of bliss thing. Yeah. That so what was Hiranyakashipu's center of his life? It was himself. And what was the result? He had everything, control of the whole universe. Still he was dissatisfied. Dissatisfaction. But what was the center of Prahlad Maharaj? It was pleasing Krishna. That and what's the result? Alat, bliss. That so that brings up the questions: are we in material life or spiritual life? Are we feeling dissatisfied or blissful? If we are not happy, then that means that we are in the center, that in the wrong place. That one can judge by the results, Srila Prabhupada said. That now in the next in the last part of the purport, that near to the end, it is there. Moment. Just It says, moment, I'm just, yeah. Yeah, it's not the last paragraph, but the second last, near to the end. Therefore, pleasing Narayan does not require as much endeavor as pleasing one's family, community, and nation. We have seen important political leaders killed for a slight discrepancy in their behavior. Therefore, pleasing one's society, family, community, and nation is extremely difficult. Pleasing Narayan, however, is not at all difficult. It's very easy. I read also the last paragraph. One's duty is to revive one's relationship with Narayan. A slight endeavor in this direction will make the attempt successful, whereas one will never be successful in pleasing a so-called family, society, and nation, even if one endeavors to sacrifice his life. This simple endeavor involved in the devotional service of Shravana, Kirtana, and Vishnu, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, can make one successful in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sid Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore bestowed his blessings by saying Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, all glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from his human form, he must take to the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada, he speaks in his purport, yes, it's very difficult to pleasing family, society. Is anyone has been successful in pleasing the family, in pleasing brothers, sisters, wives, mostly we can say, yes, temporary success we may get, but it's very difficult. But Srila Prabhupada makes a point in the last part of the purport. But we have got the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. All what we need to do is chanting the holy names without offenses. And then Shiva Goswami comments, the illusory potency of Maya is described in the following verses. And this is the verses from 20 till 23. This chapter today, at the end of the class, and especially, and tomorrow, we will go in very deep philosophy that not easy to understand. But here Prahlad starts to teach them. He gives Bhagavatam class to his schoolmates. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, who is infallible and indefatigable, that is present in different forms of life, from the inert living beings, Stavar, such as the plants, to Brahma, the foremost created living being, is also present in the varieties of material creations and in the material elements, the total material energy and the modes of material nature, Sattva-gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun, as well as the unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although each one is present everywhere, he is also the transcendental supersoul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the course of the hearts of all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as the all-pervading supersoul, but actually he cannot be indicated. He is chainless and undivided. He is simply perceived as the Supreme Satchidananda, eternally knowledge and bliss, being covered by the curtain of the external energy. To the atheist, he appears non-existent. So this is a bit similar as we heard in the first canto, chapter 18, chapter 8, the prayers of Queen Kunti. There, Queen Kunti speaks about Maya Shavanika Chanam, that the curtain, illusory curtain of Maya, Maya Shavanikachanam Ahya Doksam Apyayam Nalaksyate Mudadvisa Nato Natyadaro Yata. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of the deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So Krishna is the real doer in the world. As a super soul, he does everything. But by the curtain of deluding energy, we don't see him doing, and we think we are doing. That therefore it's said in Bhagavad Gita, yes, that Prakati Kriyamani Guna Karmana Selsa Hankara Vimudatma Kartamiti Anyati. One who thinks himself the doer is a Vimuda, a great fool, because everything is done by material nature, which is controlled by Krishna. And we can't see it, but he's doing everything. We are only desiring. It's a great illusion. Now, paragraph 3, that the supreme cause is Krishna, and the devotees have surrendered to the supreme personality of Godhead. So we have the word surrender here. That's a key verse in this chapter, that just all devotees have surrendered unto him, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they can realize him and his presence within the universe and atom. Adantarasta Paramanu Shayantarastam. That's from the Brahma Samhita. The realization is possible for the devotees who have fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord. That for others it's not possible. This is confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Deva yesha guna maya mama maya dachya mami vaye papachati mayam etam tarantiti. The process of surrender in a devotional attitude is accepted by fortunate living being. So the key word in these verses is surrender. That so then at the end of this purport, the living entity in the material condition wanders to many varieties of life and many varieties of circumstances. But if he comes in contact with a pure devotee and is intelligent enough to take instructions from the pure devotee regarding the process of devotional service, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead the origin of Brahman and Paramatma without difficulty. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya said, Antayama Patarchatma Vyapta Kalo Harismita Prakritya Tamasa Vritatvat Harerashvaryam Narhyachate. The Lord is present as Antayama in everyone's heart and is visible in the individual soul covered by a body. Indeed, he is everywhere at every time and every condition. But because he is covered by the curtain of material energy, to an ordinary person, there appears to be no God. So the point made in this verse is the devotional service is very easy. I know that Shuddha Kirti Prabhu was for many years the servant of Srila Prabhupada, and he wrote a book about Srila Prabhupada's life. He's writing, What is the difficulty? That's the title. That Srila Prabhupada said many times, nothing is impossible for a devotee. And thus nothing is impossible for the servant of a pure devotee. So I have here a quote from the VIHE-Bhaktivedanta. Prahlad Maharaj says that the Lord is even present in the elements. We see later on when Hiranyakasipu challenged Prahlad Maharaj and asked, is he in the pillar? Prahlad Maharaj said, of course, everywhere. So that's what he's saying in this verse. The Lord is everywhere. But it is said also the reason that Nrsingadeva appeared, it was also to prove these words stating in this verse that the Lord is everywhere, even in the elements. In the Paramatma Sandarbha also, Shiva Goswami comments on this verse. He says the supersoul enters the heart of all living beings. Its nature is like that. It is spiritual and full of bliss in our heart as supersoul. Because he is free from any trace of matter, he is free from suffering. He is filled with knowledge and bliss, is in the abode of transcendental love. Therefore, it is the supersoul that is most dear to every embodied being, the source of the creation of all moving and non-moving living entities. So, the point is, Krishna is everywhere, but we cannot see him anywhere. Because our eyes are covered by this Maya Shavani Kachanam, this curtain of the illusory energy. But these verses are explaining how to see him. Text 24. Yeah, in this verse starts like in the same way as I think verse 8-7 of Bhagavad Gita. Tasmat sarvetu bhuteshu dayam kauta saridam bhavamasuram unmucha chaya tustas adoksaya. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, and thus become their well-wisher. Just a moment. I'm going to close the door here because there is some unnecessary noise outside. So that is better. So here again, Prahlad Maharaj says, try to please the Lord. He's urging the children to preach. This is very nice for you. So I'm reading the purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhakti-amama vijanati yavya sasmi tattvata. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The best service, you say. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied when one engages in the service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 1869. Nasatasman manusyasu kashinhe priyakritamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear than me, nor will there be everyone be more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and his supremacy, even if he is perfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is bhakti. If one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru and preach Krishna consciousness. Yare deka tareka Krishna padas. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the world. And then he quotes, Bhaktam Sagatapasam Sarvulak Maheshram Sridam Sarvbhutam Khatfamam Santim Richati. So, but even if one is not very knowledgeable, still you can preach. That when I was traveling with Prahlad Maharaj, he a few times brought up that funny story that we have. Of course, in the beginning, in America, there was Malati, who was married with Shyama Sundar, and they had a daughter, Saraswati. Saraswati was just a little girl, was a toddler, and during the Sunday feast, she would go to the guest and said, "Do you know who Krishna is?" And when they would say no, he would say, "Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So Srila Prabhupada heard that, and he said, "You see, even a child can preach. Whatever you know, you share about Krishna, you share with others. And preaching is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And there are three formulas of knowledge, three basic principles of knowledge. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada brings that point here. These three formulas of knowledge. Bhaktaram Chakatapasam is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram is supreme proprietor. And Suradam Sarvabhutanam is the best friend of all living entities. So we need to make our center pleasing Krishna. If we are not doing that, so many problems that so text 25. Prahlad continues. Nothing is unobtainable for the devotees who have satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes, the original source of everything. The Lord is a reservoir of unlimited spiritual qualities. For devotees, therefore, who are transcendental to the modes of material nature, what is the use of following the principles of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, which are all automatically obtainable under the influence of the modes of nature? We devotees always glorify the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore we need not to ask for anything in terms of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So he said, no need for this dharma, karma, karma and artha, which is being taught by Sandhya Marka. That comes automatically. That so Prahlad Maharaj says, do not listen to your teachers. No need to strive for dharma, arma, kama, moksha. That so how can we? How is nothing impossible for a devotee? We have heard of Shivas Thakur. He was not working. He was 24 hours engaged in devotional service, and he was maintained by the Lord. That so we can read at the end of the purport that the last 6 lines, because they are nirmatsara, not jealous of anyone, they want to make others devotees, even their enemies. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya remarks, Kangsante moksakam apisukam nakangsato yata. Devotees are not desirous of any material happiness, including the happiness derived from liberation. This is called anyabilasa sunyam jnana karmatanavitam. Karmis desire material happiness, and jnanis desire liberation, but the devotee does not desire anything. He is simply satisfied by rendering transcendental loving service at the lotus feet of the Lord and glorifying him everywhere by preaching, which is the life and soul. The life and soul so Prahlad Maharaj said, give up this dharma, this study of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Bhujan Prabhu said, yes, you give up a lesser teaching to get a higher one, so you don't lose anything. That if you become a billionaire, then you don't have to worry about your financial problems. Of course, still they do, because they are still dissatisfied. But when you become a devotee of Krishna, then all other problems will become solved. In 1973, Srila Prabhupada got a letter from the mayor of Hyderabad. Half of the state was suffering from drought. It didn't rain for many months, and there was no food growing. There were no food grains available. And he asked Srila Prabhupada, please come to rescue. That he was saying, if you preach, he was suggesting, if you preach, please ask for donations to help us. And Srila Prabhupada replied, I beg you to inform you that without pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one can be happy, he said. That by pleasing the Supreme Lord, then everyone becomes happy. That, and he gave an example. There was a 2-year drought somewhere, and they started Sankirtan, and finally it started to rain. But he wrote in his letter to the Major, those of demonic nature people, or those of demonic nature, these people cannot understand this. Interesting letter. Text 26. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification. These are described in the Vedas as Tri-Varga, or 3 ways to salvation. Within these 3 categories are education and self-realization. Ritualistic ceremonies performed according to Vedic injunction, logic, the science of law and order, and the various means of earning one's livelihood. These are the external subject matters of the study of the Vedas, and therefore I consider them material. However, I consider surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord to be transcendental. Surrender. That, yes. So don't go for Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, he says. That, so, before the quote, there, I will read the purport here to the end. That the ultimate goal of life is to stay on the spiritual platform, fully surrendered to the Parama Purusha, the Supreme Person. This is the object of human mission. In summary, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and injunctions are not to be discounted. They are means of being promoted to the spiritual platform. But if one does not come to the spiritual platform, the Vedic ceremonies are simply a waste of time. That, so, if one goes to school and one stops at the 3rd grade and says, yes, there is nothing higher, that is foolishness. So these are lower teachings, Prahlad Maharaj said. That, so a commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that of all these proclaimed in Shastra is considered true if they are sadhanas for loving surrender to the Supreme Lord. So that's quite an interesting statement. But what's said in the Shastra is considered true if they are sadhanas, if they are leading to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Why is that so? Vedasa Sarver Ameva Vedya, Krishna says 15:15 in Bhagavad Gita. I'm to be known by the Vedas. That's the purpose. That's Lord Kapila-dev, we have heard in the 3rd canto. If you follow Varnashram and use it in devotional service to offer the results to Krishna, then it's okay. Otherwise, it's material. Lord Chaitanya rejected it, it's external. But if it's used in devotional service, very helpful. That, yeah. So we are going to hear now in 27, where Prahlad Maharaj got his knowledge. 27. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a well-wisher and friend of all living entities, formally explained his transcendental knowledge to the great Saint Narada. Such knowledge is extremely difficult to understand without the mercy of a saintly person like Narad. But everyone who has taken shelter of Narad's disciplic succession can understand this confidential knowledge. That so if we take shelter of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara, it's very easy to understand. It's a short purport, and we'll read this purport. It is stated here that this confidential knowledge is extremely difficult to understand, yet it is very easy to understand if one takes shelter of a pure devotee. This confidential knowledge is also mentioned at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Sarvadharam Prishayam Mahamkam Sambhaja, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. This knowledge is an extremely confidential secret, but it can be understood if one approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the bona fide agent, the spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Narad. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to impress upon the sons of the demons that although such knowledge can be understood only by a saintly person like Narad, they should not be disappointed, for if one takes shelter of Narad, instead of material teachers, this knowledge is possible to understand. Understanding does not depend upon high parentage. The living entity is certainly pure on the spiritual platform, and therefore anyone who attains the spiritual platform by the grace of the spiritual master can also understand this confidential knowledge. That well, attaining the spiritual platform by the grace of the spiritual master. That so before we may all have this experience, before we came to Krishna consciousness, it was very difficult to understand transcendental knowledge. When we got the first Bhagavad Gita, I understood, I read it, but I understood very little. But when you associate with devotees and start to serve them, then understanding comes. There's that story of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, and he was working on a desk, and someone came and asked, Maharaj, can I ask you a question? And Maharaj said, I'm now busy with some work, but you see the pujari there, kindly help him to polish and clean the brass paraphernalia for the deities. And when that's finished, then please come in half an hour. So the man went to the pujari and was helping him with polishing. And then 1 hour later, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj went to the man and said, you can ask your questions now. And the man said, oh, while I was polishing the brass paraphernalia, all the answers came into my mind, he said. That's very interesting. When you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna is revealed to you, God willing. That Narottam Das Thakur sings, without serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master, who is perfectly liberated from material bondage, one cannot become liberated. This is Pada Sevanam. Pada Sevanam. Yeah. So we heard about powerful ways to get mercy. Get the water washed, that is, wash the lotus feet of the Lord. That the dust that has touched the lotus feet of the devotees, the water that has washed the lotus feet of devotees, not the Lord's Son, the devotees, and take the prasadam remnants of the devotees. It's known as 3 powerful ways to get mercy. That we have heard in the first canto that Tulayame Lavanapni Nasvriham Napuvarvam Bharvatsangasangasya Martyam Kimutashisha. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of the heavenly plans or liberation from matter, but to speak of worldly benediction in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. That the lavena, just a moment association. We have seen many stories. Those who have met Srila Prabhupada even for a moment, their life was changed. That you have also the verses in the 4th canto. We have learned there the prayers of Lord Shiva, 4:24-57. If one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. What interest can we have in the benedictions of the demigods who are subject to the laws of birth and death? That's so. Like we have Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj has killed all these yakshas, and then finally he agreed to stop, and Kuvera wanted to give him a benediction. And Dhruva Maharaj said, if you want to give me a benediction, just let me associate with pure devotion, with pure devotees. Association with pure devotees is the highest, because it can bring us back to Godhead. Text 28. Prahlad Maharaj continued, I received this knowledge from the great sage Narad Muni, who is always engaged in devotional service. This knowledge, which is called Bhagavad Dharma, is fully scientific. It is based on logic and philosophy and is free from material contamination. That the sons of the demons replied, Dear Prahlad, neither you nor we know any teacher or spiritual master other than Sandai and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya. After all, we are children, and they are our controllers. For you especially, who always remain within the palace, it is very difficult to associate with a great personality. Dear friend, most gentle one, would you kindly explain how it was possible for you to hear Narada? Kindly dispel our doubts in this regard. So the children, they say, where did you get that knowledge from Narada? How could you get this knowledge? You are like us, being locked up in this palace. And that will be revealed in the next chapter, how Prahlad learned in the womb. So we will now pause for 10 minutes. That means, we will resume at 2:15. 2:15 in 12 minutes from now. And then we will go to questions on the screen, and then other questions. There are a lot of questions today. So see you soon. So we can continue. So the first question, which is on the screen now, and that we discussed at the beginning of the class. Why do no difficulties exist in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who wants to answer this question, please make your answers so short, concise, that please. Yeah, Mother Lalita Maya, please speak.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada tells that as it's not difficult for a child to please his father, and he's our supreme eternal father, so it's not difficult for us to please him. It's just reviving our consciousness.
That okay. That's like it. You say like a child is easily pleasing their parents, or
Yes, Maharaj.
okay.
But gives that analogy in the purport.
Okay, that's in the purport. Yes. Thank you. The Mother Prabhupada Priya, please.
He's pleased by simple processes of just hearing about him, chanting his holy names, thinking about him. We don't have to do any, back-breaking thing or any wonderful achievements. We just need to think about him and hear about him and talk about him.
Yeah,
He's happy with that.
That's a good point. I have a god brother, and my spiritual master Bhakti Maharaj, he initiated him, and he cannot hear, he cannot speak. That so how did he become a devotee? By reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And because he cannot hear and speak, he cannot chant properly. Chanting one round takes him nearly more than half an hour, 40 minutes. But still, my Guru Maharaj initiated him and asked him to chant 4 rounds a day. 4 rounds means for him that's 3 to 4 hours chanting. So that means just by hearing. Hearing means also reading. And chanting, yes, if possible. But even one of these processes is so potent that it is, even those who cannot hear and speak, they become devotees. So potent. Thank you. That Vishalaksha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Yeah. Krishna says that Aham Bija Pradapita is a seed-giving father of all the living beings. So, just we can see commonly in a child in our house, when he is very small, he can walk, he is trying to walk, he will fall many times. So even though falls many times, stands, falls, still parents, the little efforts of the child, parents will be very appreciative and happy. Similarly, Krishna consciousness is not easy, so easy, because the Supreme Father, whatever Krishna says, we try to do little bit, like just remembering him, say Hare Krishna or Radhe Radhe, just little bit saying, he will appreciate and easy to follow.
Yes, that's a nice thought. Thank you. Very good. Mother Kasturica, you want to add something?
Yes, Maharaj. Here in the verse, Prabhupada translates saying that the relationship between the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact. So there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. Example of the Ajamila, although he's been indulged in many sinful activities, but the Lord is very anxious. When will he turn to Krishna? So the Lord is just waiting for the jiva to turn towards the Lord. So to please the Lord is not really difficult. It's just we have to make the endeavor to turn to Him.
Yes, and then the Lord gives us experiences that from which we learn. Ajamil, he had this near-death experience and he learned from it. That so anxious is the Lord. He gives us these experiences. Thank you. That's very nice. Mother Divya Lida, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So in the 9th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, that he wants only these things, little water, flower, fruit. So Prabhupada writes, in anyone in any part of the world, whether he is a rich or poor, can easily please the Supreme Lord. So there is no difficulty in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, very simple. Thank you. Rabinda Prabhu, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, it's just I suppose it's really been said already. It's just because of the Lord's ultimate compassionate and friendly nature, and always realizing that we are not. We may have those qualities, but in very small amounts, where He has them in full abundance. So that's why no difficulty exists, because it's coming from His part. We're giving examples of Ajamil and also in purport about the natural father-son relationship.
Yeah. He's our father. So it's natural for the child to be attracted to the father. Thank you. Mashinga Prabhu, can you speak? Is your technical problem solved now? Yeah, we hear you. No? You have to unmute when you want to speak. You have to do an action. That it's not automatically. Yes. Speak now. Yeah. So there's a technical thing with your computer. Your mic is not working. So you have to test that with someone. Get technical help. Because we are speaking, we see your lips moving on the video, but we don't hear anything. So there is a problem. Please kindly test that with someone and sort that out. Thank you. Otherwise, we have every time you want to speak and we don't hear you. Hare Krishna. So, Avinash Mathur, Prabhu? The last one? Yeah, please.
Prabhupada also adds in the purport to this verse 19 that in order to achieve an established relationship with Narayana, in this age of Kali, one has to just do Shravanam Kirtanam. So even if one follows one out of these 9 methods of Navada Bhakti, that is sufficient. And particularly in Kali, Shravanam Kirtanam, chanting and hearing is sufficient to establish. So that is why it is also easy to.
Yeah, that's the easy process giving us to by Lord Chaitanya. Chant, dance, take prasadam. Very easy. That's true. That's a nice addition. Thank you. Tribhuvannath Prabhu, you are the last one on this subject. Anything you have to add? Please.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, below.
We don't hear you.
Yeah.
There's a problem that we can come back later. Hare Krishna. So we will now see the answer from the purport of Srila Prabhupada. And there are a few points that, my dear sons of demon, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is the original Super Soul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing him or worshiping him under any conditions. So he's our father and he's a Super Soul very nearby. whether one be a child or an old man. The relationship between the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. So we have this relationship. We cannot break it. It's not possible, but we have to revive it. That Srila Prabhupada, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Sarva Yonisikantya Mukhtaya Sambhavantya Dasham Brahmatyuni Hambija Pata Pita. It should be understood that of all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. The Supreme Lord Narayan is the seed-giving father of all living entities, because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Mamaivam Shivila Loke. Then, pleasing one's society, family, community, and nation is extremely difficult. Pleasing Narayan, however, is not at all difficult. It's easy. The simple endeavor involved in the devotional service, Shravana Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, can make one successful in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ajamil pleased the Lord and was saved by the chanting, even unknowingly. So, next question. How can one realize the Lord's position as related by Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam 20 to 24? Before you answer this question, that I will read these verses again. That so says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, who is infallible and indefatigable, is present in different forms of life, from the inert living beings, Stavar, such as the plants, to Brahma, the foremost created living being, is also present in the varieties of material creations and in the material elements, the material energy and the modes of material nature, Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna, as well as the unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although he is one, he is present everywhere. He is also the transcendental super soul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the course of the hearts of all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as the all-pervading super soul, but actually he cannot be indicated. He is chainless and undivided. He is simply perceived as the supreme Satchidananda, eternal in knowledge and bliss, being covered by the curtain of the external energy. To the atheist, he appears non-existent. So how can one realize the Lord's position as related by Prahlad Maharaj in these verses? You have also verse 24. Therefore, my dear young friends, born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. That show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service and thus become their well-wishers. So please, that so we will limit ourselves to the 4 who are now raised their hands. Otherwise, it will bring us too long, because we have also, there's also another question. That's Mother Prabhupada Priya, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So 2 things. One is that when we give up all other shelters, all the, taking shelter of the fallible soldiers of family and all these other things, country, and we just take shelter of Krishna, then we realize his infallible protection and guidance. And then we start to see how all the circumstances of our lives all the workings of the material energies are actually his doing. You know, that it's all unfolding according to his plan in the perfect way. And then the other way to realize his position is, like he says in text 24, is by preaching, is by showing mercy to other living entities, by enlightening them in devotional service. Then the Lord becomes very pleased by that effort, and he reveals himself more and more to us so that we can feel his presence in everything and understand his infallible position.
That's a nice summary. That sums it up. That thank you, Vishalaksha Prabhu. Is there something you want to add to that?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, actually, one way being a time is very difficult to understand the position of the Lord, but it is easy to understand the way it is said that suppose I want to know my father, I should approach my mother. Similarly, if I want to know the Supreme Lord or know his position, I should approach, surrender through scriptures. Then it is easy to understand the father through the bona fide mother. So Srila Prabhupada very nicely says that I'm very tiny. God is great, so I should serve him. Then I can understand easily.
Yeah. Even if you surrender to the scriptures, you may not understand the Lord. You must take shelter of his pure devotee, we learned before.
Yeah, under the guidance
that must be in combination of that. And then with their mercy, we will start to understand. If we just read without that connection, we think we understood, but we didn't realize anything of it. Thank you. That's good points. Ravindra Prabhu, you want to add something, please? Go.
Maharaj, I think probably everything you said already. It's a nice summary by Prabhupada there, and I think all of what she said, and then also this aspect of also we should, taking the shelter of the bona fide representative, but also to preach. So then by preaching, we're enlightening our service and becoming their well-wisher.
Yeah. Very good.
Lord is revealed.
By preaching, Krishna reciprocates. It's by trying that this is a spiritual law. Just going to mute everyone. This is a spiritual law. If we try to give away Krishna consciousness, we get it. Krishna gives it to the heart. On the material platform, you give something away and you get rid of it, lost. But on the spiritual platform, we give Krishna consciousness to others and we get a realization from it. And that's very interesting. So, Mother Kasturica, you are the last one to speak on this point. Please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I mean, adding to their point, I was just reading Prabhupada how he says, realization of the Lord, however, is possible only in association of devotees. So we have to understand the Vaishnava philosophy by getting into association of the devotees.
Yes, then we get the mercy. Krishna says that where devotees are together and they are speaking about me, there I'm present. It's very powerful. Thank you. So now we will see what's in the purport. That so it's a super soul of all living entities, realizing that the super soul is Maya Dakshina Prakriti. It's a super soul that does everything. So if you see reality, you see every moment the super soul, how he pervades everything, how he exists in all circumstances and all time. It's all also present in the atoms. That's all pervading. That was the point Prahlad Maharaj will make later, when his father says, yes, he's all pervading. Is he in the pillar? Prahlad Maharaj will say yes, and the Lord will come out of it to prove his words to be true. So if one understands the Vaishnava philosophy, which explains how he is present everywhere and how he acts everywhere, to worship the Supreme Lord or to realize him is not at all difficult, because you see him every moment. With your intelligence, you can see. Realization of the Lord, however, is possible only in association of devotees. Brahmanda Brahmade Konya Bhagavan Jiva Gaur Krishna Prasade Bhakti Lata Beach. So the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Amama Vijati Nati Yamya Sasmi Tattvata. I can understand the Supreme Personality only as is by devotional service. That's what he says in 1855. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the signs of Krishna consciousness. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in the service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 1869. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those whom he preaches also become satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhaktam Chagatapasam Sarvlokmasvam Sridam Sarvbhutam Gatvarmam Santim Pritchati. Now, thank you. The next question. What does a devotee desire? That should be an easy one. That text 25. That what does a devotee desire? Someone wants to speak about that. Just one sentence, two sentences. Be concise. That yes, Mother Lalita Putimai, please speak.
Maharaj, Prabhupada also mentions that a devotee's desire is to preach about the Lord and to serve him heartfully. So with that, he is satisfied.
Yeah, it's difficult to hear you because you have loudspeakers, and these loudspeakers are too loud, and the sound is going into your mic, and by that nobody of us can hear you.
Maharaj, you're able to.
Yes, can you repeat what you said?
I just said that the devotees are very much happy and they just to serve the Lord.
Yeah, we didn't get everything. But yeah, they are happy to serve the Lord. That's what we heard. Thank you.
And about it.
Please. Okay. Thank you. Vishalaksha Prabhu, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes. Please.
Yeah. Devotee, devotee does many services. He always wants one desire, Maharaj. Mama Janmani Janmani Sware. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that he always wants Janma after Janma, the pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Krishna. He doesn't want na dhanam, na janam, na sundari, na kavita, jagadesha kamai. Mama Janmani Janmaneshware. Bhavata Bhaktir Ahyataki. So this pure devotional service, they always want. And they want the same to others.
He wants only to serve the Supreme Lord. That's good. Vasudev Krishna Prabhu, what can you add to that?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. So just adding to what other devotees have already said, basically Lord is the reservoir of the unlimited spiritual qualities, and because devotees, they are also transcendental or spiritual, so that's why they don't want these material things which are dharma, artha, and kama, or moksha, but they just are satisfied by glorifying the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yes, that's a nice summary. Thank you. Mother Prabhupada Priya, you want to comment on this or add something?
I just want to add that a devotee wants to make other people devotees.
Okay, that's a desire. Yeah, they want even to give it to their enemies, is in the purport. That, thank you. Good. We will now see what we derived from the purport. Because they are not near Matsara, not jealous of anyone, they want to make other devotees, even their enemies. So that's the desire of a devotee. Srila Madhvacharya remarks, Kanksate moksagamma api sukham na kangsatoyata. Devotees are not desirous of any material happiness, including the happiness derived from liberation. This is called Anya Bilasa Sunyam Sun Jnana Kamartanavritam. Karma is desire material happiness, and jnana is desire liberation. But the devotee does not desire anything, is simply satisfied by rendering transcendental loving service at the lotus feet of the Lord and glorifying everywhere by preaching, which is his life and soul. Now we have a few questions that how do the 9 processes of devotion service uncover the super soul? That's explained in many places, that in previous cantos in the Bhagavad Gita, that's explained there, that Tatorajas Tato Kama Kamalabhasaya Sitere Teranavitam Sitve Sattve Prasidati. It uncovers, because it removes shalom, the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance. And one becomes satisfied. Evam Pansamanasa Bhakti Yoga. Evam Pansamanasa Bhakti Yoga Payojita. Bhakta Bhagavad Bhakta Vishyanam Mukta Sangha Sangha. Yeah, it is Evam Pansamanasa Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga Bhagavad Bhakta Vishyanam. That Mukta Sangha Sangate. The last line is not correct. But when one becomes purified in heart, one becomes peaceful. And then Bhakti Yoga, the Bhakti Tattva Vishyanam. I better take the verse. Moment. Yes. Evam Pansamanasa Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga Bhagavad Tattva Vishyanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. That when one is in the unalloyed mode of goodness, the mind has been enlivened by contact with devotion and service. One gains positive knowledge to the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from material association. Vidyatere deyeganti sityanti sarvasamsyak shyanti sasya karmana dristva evat manishvari. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated, and one sees the self and the super self as the masters. Dristva evat manishvari. Then you come in contact with the super soul within the heart. That this contact with the super soul in the heart is also explained in 7. So the chanting of the holy name, hearing the Bhagavatam chanting, all these 9 processes are purifying the heart. One goes to anartha nivritti, and then then this curtain of Maya is removed. That's the 3 modes. Then one becomes peaceful, Citatma Pasantavya, Paramatma Samaita. That's Bhagavad Gita 6.7. When one has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. It's next question. We say that by pleasing Krishna, one pleases everyone. But when a young devotee becomes a devotee, their parents are not kindly, not all pleased. This is not my understanding. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.14. Yatataro mulani sheshanene tepyanti tatskanta biopasaka pranopareksayatandyanam tataiva sarvarnam asyutya. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everyone else, and as applying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service, automatically satisfy the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. It satisfies the demigods who are devotees, not the demons. That, yeah, let's see. How could one categorize Prahlad Maharaj? Do I call him a first-class business consultant? Of course, the teachings of the 2 sons of demons has its roots in the Vedas. What kind of business strategy Prahlad Maharaj wants us to accept? Yeah, you can research that. Let us know your conclusion if you want to look at it from the perspective. We are looking at through the Shastra, but maybe interesting that Mother Lalita Priti Maya, I see that some participants are unmuted, so for hearing an echo, kindly mute everyone, Maharaj. I'm doing that all the time, but always some are unmuting, and I cannot do that. I have to give a lecture here. I have to speak with you and dive into so, what can I do? I do my best. I'm trying to be your servant. That any other points, please? Good. Then tomorrow we go to chapter 7, and Prahlad will reveal us what he learned in the womb, and especially not the first verses. First is more story, but then it's going in very deep philosophy. That will be very interesting. Looking forward to see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Jai
Thank you.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna
Jai
Maharaj.
Jai.
Hare Bol.